Let's do this thing.
Let's do it. Here we go. Recording. Live.
Of if a child was running into the street, what would you do as a father? Like, how would you react? And you would do whatever it took. I mean, you would scream at that child. You would just be ferocious to make sure that the child didn't go into the street. And you would literally do anything. I mean, you'd knock the child over. You know, that's the duty of a father to their son or to their child. And so my buddy that I work with, his name's Paul. He was working me through past, and we were talking about different things, and he said, let's look at our past this way. If you look at your son, and your son say, well, let's take my son, 8 years old, and he does something wrong, and he's sorry for it, but he did it, and he knew he shouldn't have done it. He actually knew ahead of time he shouldn't have done it. He could feel it. He did it anyway. Then he looks at me and says, "I'm sorry," and then I forgive him. He takes, if there's a punishment, he takes the punishment, and then that's it. We're done with that. The question that Paul asked me was, do I then, as the father, do I go back 5 years later, 10 years later, and keep reminding him of that mistake that he made when he was 8? And the answer is clearly no. Like, that's not on my radar. Like, I have no intention of trying to make him feel bad or try to bring him down into the gutter and remember old things that he did in order to make him feel bad. And Paul's point was that we do that to ourselves. So sometimes we do a bad job parenting ourselves because we punish ourselves for these past behaviors, these past sins, and what happens is it stops us from letting go of those things, and they can really haunt us, and they can come up and they'll cause us to go down different spirals of negativity because these past things, they've got like a grip on you, right? And so today we want to talk about going down into that past, and when is it a good time? When does it make sense to go down there? And I think the answer is when you're ready to let go. You got to be ready to let go. But if you are, then the other thing about parenting, though, is you got to be honest, right? You have to be clear with your kids and say, well, listen, you did do this thing. It was wrong. You do need to say sorry, and you do need to, be accountable for what you did. And then after that, we can let it go. We can forgive completely. But you also do need to admit that you did something wrong, because if you do not admit that you did something wrong, you wouldn't even know. And so and then you wouldn't learn from it, you wouldn't grow from it, and you would just end up doing it again, essentially. So that's when it's time to go into the past, is when you're ready to let go of it. And what you want to do is you want to dig down into that past behavior, dig into that old self, and you need to look at you as a parent. You got to look down in a loving way, and you have to be honest with what's there. Then you need to forgive it completely, and then you need to let it go. And we talk a lot about this in acting, about the idea of letting go. As a matter of fact, we spoke briefly about this yesterday. I had a young man on here named Jack Bennett, who's just such a wonderful human being. And as a matter of fact, I talked to you, Brian, afterward. I believe it was you. No, maybe it was Joey.
No, yeah, we talked about it. Yeah.
Did we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jack is this. He was so like loving and humble and giving. He really, really came on the show with the intention of lifting up the studio. It was clear. And I wanted to tell him, so maybe he'll watch this, I wanted to tell him so badly that he needs to keep that whatever that is inside of him that created that. Everywhere he goes, when he has a favorite restaurant, he has a favorite whatever. I mean, I just love the way that he found a way to lift us up in so many wonderful ways, and he meant it. It was all very, very sincere. And when you treat people like that, and you're not self-serving, you're not about you, it's so interesting because you look good, you look better. So anyway, I'm talking to Jack yesterday, and we were going into some of this stuff, and there's such a demand on you as an actor to be what we call to be free. And so what Jack and I were discussing was just the idea of being free enough to improvise. You really want to have this like complete freedom as an actor to get on the stage or in front of the camera and be completely like let go, just be the character, you know. Well, where does that come from? And Jack was very gracious in him discussing how I had helped him sort of with a frame of mind on this thing. But the point was, at the end of the day, it comes from the work. There's no other place. You cannot be free to improvise unless you have memorized word for word to such a degree that is just like it's almost gruesome how much work you put into it. That's where the freedom comes from. Freedom comes from the work. And so when we're talking about letting go of things in our own lives, which we really need to start there, you know, because if you're going to be a great actor, you're going to be great at whatever your passion is, whatever you really want to do in life, you're going to have things that are down there, that are holding you back, that are going to cause repeat behavior over and over and over again. And until you let it go, you're going to keep hitting these like roadblocks, these little glass ceilings, and you'll keep coming back down and then up and then back down and then up. And just think of them like anchors or weights, and you want to just release them, free yourself of those things. But you got to go into the past. You got to dig into the past when you're ready in order to sort of slice it out and get rid of it. I know you've dealt with some of this, Bri, especially, I mean, in both areas, you know, life and acting. So let's start with acting maybe. On the memorization side of things, that's always been a thing for you and me, really. I mean, also. But when you've given into it, and I think it's been only a few times in your life when you've really gone next level with your memorizing, and you were just outstanding on the stage.
Mm-hmm. Definitely has only been a few times, and definitely only very recently through masterclass, because I have a tendency to just to get by what I have, and very very last minute with things. And so to be able to work something to the point where I felt like you talked about this the other day, where you did your absolute best.
Yeah.
So you're not working off of what you did years ago and all the work that came from that, but literally you're working from what I'm just doing, and like what all the work that I just did, and I did my absolute very best that I could possibly do for me. And honestly, there's been very few times within acting that I've felt that, and masterclass has started to help me feel that. But that's the beautiful thing about acting and what we do is they coexist, life and acting. So every time I've been in masterclass and something like that happens, it immediately just exposes that this isn't an acting thing. Like this isn't a you're on the stage, and this is a life thing, bro. Like you are lazy. Like you are lazy. You do things last minute because you know you can. And so I mean, when you simplify it down in my life, you don't live up to your potential.
Yeah.
So that was the most recent one for me within that. And so, yeah, it's just.
What about when we did the Lonesome West? We did the play.
That one was huge. It was embarrassing for me. It was, everybody else was flying through certain things. And I had a partner, BB, who was phenomenal. I mean, she was so great at her work ethic that like you could tell she was getting frustrated by helping me and graciously helping me, but I was getting frustrated with me, and all the way up to performance time I still didn't have it down to what I could have. And the interesting thing about that is you can't go back. Like, I can't just go back and be like, okay, let me just like do that again. Like, you have one chance. You got your shot, and that's the other thing that acting teaches is right then, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, that monologue I had was like 4 pages long.
Yeah.
And I got it memorized, but I didn't get it all the way to the last page fully memorized. And there were nights where when the pressure was on in night 1 and 2 where I missed a piece. I missed a piece and I knew it, and people would come up after on night 2 specifically. I remember it, and I bawled. I cried because the people kept coming up to me and going like, "Oh, you did so good. Like, that monologue was killer." And that monologue is, I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." You know, and you don't want to go negative with them, but like in your head, you're like, you have no idea how bad that was. Like, you have no idea how much that was not what I am capable of. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's great. But no.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually didn't I didn't know you were, so I knew that you were still struggling with the lines, but I didn't know that you were that it affected you that much. So by the end of the run, did you find a night where it really hit?
Yeah, I felt it really hit in the night 3.
Okay.
Night 1 was just, it was a small little spot. Like, just I just like jumped over 2 lines or whatever. Night 1. Night 2 straight up froze. Night 2 there was a freeze moment. Now I taught on that in the class for a while because that was a moment that I then just used. I stayed in character, I stayed connected, I listened, and I imagined the other people there until I found the line. So I didn't like panic, which is why people didn't see it,
Right.
unless you knew the play or knew what was going on. But yeah, that's totally what happened.
That's really cool. It's good of you to bring up then, because you were very good in the play, honestly. But it doesn't matter. Like, it
Right.
just doesn't matter. And once you figure out that I don't even care what other people say of me, I especially don't care. I mean, really, did I do the work? Did I do my best? Then if the answer is yes, you could get 1,000,000 bad reviews and it doesn't matter. And you can get a great review and it doesn't matter because you know you did your best. And then you cross-check, what have I been doing since? You know, that's the other thing. I remember there was I think it was opening night of that play. A couple things didn't go perfectly, and I was not only in it with you, but directing, you know, and you were producing. We had a lot going on. It was a lot on our plates, and people ask us sometimes why we don't do more plays, because they came and saw the play and were like, "Oh my gosh, why don't you guys do more plays?" And we're like, we'll do more plays, but the reason we don't do them all the time is because when I go in on something, get out of the way, because I'm going all in on that thing, whatever that thing is. And plays generally, they're not huge profit makers, and they are time sucks, especially when you work on it at the level that I expect us to work on it. You know, because I expect nothing less than Broadway quality theater, nothing less. And I'd like to say that, you know, when we go up on stage and put up a play for 30 people, that it could take the Pepsi challenge with somebody putting up the same play on Broadway, off Broadway. At least those are the standards that I set, and whether or not we reach it or not, I that's not for me to say, but that's the amount of care and effort that goes into it. So it's these crazy long days and nights of just obsession over something that is essentially losing you money.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Totally.
But from that obsession, what I wanted to talk about was on that night 1, when some things went wrong. Something happened to me backstage, and it kind of reminded me of this. It's funny. Shay came in. She's been watching that documentary, the whatever the Michael Jordan legend thing is.
Oh yeah.
Remember,
yeah.
she came in yesterday, and she comes in yesterday, and she's like, "Okay, do not let this go to your head. But you kind of remind me of Michael Jordan." I was like, "Oh yes, I'm gonna bring this up till the end of time because I'm a huge MJ fan." But what she meant was his intensity. What she meant was his just tenacity and how he was so hard on the people around him because he expected them to be excellent. And she's like, "And you're like that. you do that. And I've told her, I said, I get it. I've apologized for working with me because I know it's hard. I say sorry to you, Brian, probably a couple times a week.
Joey Sweeney facts. I mean, it's just true. Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to work with someone who is always looking for the next way to get better, especially when you succeed. So we celebrate, but we celebrate and we pivot just like immediately. That's just my mindset. So that's that thing. Well, anyway, she said I reminded her of MJ, so I'm gonna take that both compliment and insult simultaneously, and kind of do something with it, and maybe I'll find ways to grow. So I haven't seen the documentary, but I'm sure there are ways that I can grow in my intensity and finding ways to subdue some of those things potentially. I don't know if it's possible to subdue something like this, as crazy as I am. But what happened on that opening night, it did remind me now of MJ when I think about it, because a couple things went wrong in Act 1, and I remember being backstage with the other actor who's playing my brother, and I just looked at him and I said just something like, just follow my lead, like I'm putting this play on my shoulders, something like that. And I went out and I had this out of body experience on the stage and just sort of took over. And to his credit, he had done the work, and he was able to just go step for step with me. And we had this, it was explosive, it was scary, it was funny, it was just,
dude, you could feel it backstage.
It was unreal.
Unreal.
Like, I was no longer me. I fully was all the way in. It was what MJ does when he grabs the ball and his team is down by 8 and there's only 4 minutes left on the clock and he just takes over the game. Mm-hmm. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because it really does feed into this idea of where does that come from? Well, only the work ethic. Like, if you haven't done the work, you may want to do that, but you can't. Like, or if you do, it's not genuine, and you'll fall, and you can't actually lift everybody else up around you, because unless you've done 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times as much work as everybody else, you can't put the play on your shoulders. You can't ask for the ball when the game's on the line. It's not going to work, So that's where that comes from, and then you get the freedom. Then you get the ability to just completely let go, be in the moment, be totally connected with those around you, and just live as an actor, live as a person. And there's really nothing better. It's the best feeling in the world. It's the reason why, by the way, I really transitioned in improv, and why I love improv more than I ever did now is more the science behind it, the work ethic that has to go behind it, and some of this new formula that I figured out recently in the last, say, 5 years. I figured out this new thing for me that just helped me explode on the improv stage. And that was, I had to let go. It's not surprising that I used to improvise a little bit like a director, a little bit like a teacher, and I would try to control things. And I look back, do you remember Darren Schmidt?
Yeah, of course I remember Darren. Yeah.
Darren Schmidt.
Perfect hair down here. Yeah.
This guy, Darren Schmidt, he was on our improv troupe for years, and I have a really soft spot for Darren. I loved Darren. He was just a really neat guy, but he was a showstopper. When Darren was on the stage, he was going to get laughs, guaranteed. The issue with Darren was he would throw out some things sometimes that made no sense to me. And because of my director-teacher mode style of improvising, I'd freak out about it. And sometimes, like, he would go against the grain when it came to warm-ups or it came to things I was trying to direct. And at the time I was young, I was immature, and I think I took offense to some of that, like, oh, he must not respect me or something like that. And what a silly perspective to have, that he didn't respect me. How untrue that is when I look back on it now. I mean, here's this guy. He was a school teacher. I mean, one of the most talented improvisers I've ever met in my life. And he would travel like an hour and a half from his house to come down for rehearsal. Couple times a week. He would travel an hour and a half down from his house to come perform for free. Bring audience members. Like, he was so committed and connected and respectful in that way. What happened was, he had this ability to do this thing that I didn't learn till later on, and it was like this eye-opening thing for me. I was in New York, and I was taking a workshop, and I was specifically from this guy that when I watched him perform, he was the one guy that I was like, that guy's really good, like better than all the other improvisers. He's so good. So I had a chance to take it was like an hour workshop with him. And he said, I do this thing in my shows. I try to find a way because, and he described me. He's like, because I'm this way, because this is my head space, I do this for myself. I do this for our team. When things are going right, when things are going well, I will drop some sort of a huge wrench into the scene, something super weird. And then we got to deal with it. And when I first heard that, I was like, that sounds scary. That sounds hard. That's like, why would you do that kind of thing? And then I went and so I had seen him perform. I was like, wow, in awe of this guy. Then I take his workshop and I'm like, okay, I'm wrestling with these thoughts. Then I go see him play afterward, like either that night or the next night. And I had this like, bing, the light bulb went off in my head. I watched him do the exact thing that he was talking about. And I saw what a gift it was. I saw, like, right in front of my eyes, what he was doing was he was purposefully putting himself and his troupe members in a place where they were uncomfortable, in a place where they didn't know what was coming next, where they were totally free and they had to improvise. They couldn't be controlling the scene. He was doing it on purpose. And I was like, this is so good, and it makes so much sense to me. I need to do this. I need to teach this, and that's what I did. I came back, and I was like, became obsessed with now teaching the next thing that I knew and understood, and so it's been great. And I was watching our show from the other day. Yeah, remember the yoga show?
Yeah.
My Himalaya character.
Yes, yeah.
That's what that was.
Oh, okay.
And I think your character, even because you're Brian and you were like spoke a little bit from you were like, well, that's weird.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
You know what I mean? Instead, because you were having a hard time getting into it, you were going like, what is he doing? Like, why is he throwing this out there? That's so weird. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know? But that was what that was it was a very specific move on purpose because things were going too well. They were it was becoming too predictable, and I knew my brain. And I knew your brain, and we were just going to do the safe choice from then on out to have a nice, safe show. But it wasn't going to be a great show.
Sure.
It was going to be a nice, safe show.
Yeah.
And I didn't want one of those. I wanted a great show.
Totally.
So I threw myself, and then you'll notice too, I became a bird. I became a turtle.
Dude, you were
I became a dog.
Yeah.
But I'm doing those things now on the improv stage. But the reason is because I'm wanting to throw out I'm wanting to throw myself into the mix and be totally free, let go completely, and be willing to do the weird thing, to do the thing that's offbeat. But again, you have to earn it. You have to earn the right to make that move because you've been listening, because you've been so connected to the scene that you know things are going well, and you purposefully throw out a curveball that you know is going to benefit everybody in the end once we wrap our minds around it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So the reason I bring up Darren Schmidt, we'll come back to that, that's what he did. You remember? That dude would throw out the most random, weirdo stuff. And I was too young and naive and silly, and I didn't know how to handle it. So it's on me. Like, that was on me. And I spent years improvising with this guy. He was awesome. He would, when he was performing, like, my mom would be like, "Is Darren performing? What about Kip?" Right?
Right, yeah.
She wasn't too worried if I was performing, but everybody loved Darren, you know? And honestly, dude, it would even bother me. Like, what an idiot I was. So it's so nice now to look back and go, the next Darren that comes along, not only would I not be afraid of him, but I would so celebrate him and try to help him in different ways, what would maybe not be his strength, but then just lift up the things that are his strengths and the things that he's doing. And I mean, how much would I love to be on the improv stage again with Darren now? Like, now that I know what he's doing and I understand it, I mean, I want that so badly, to get that opportunity to play with somebody who's fearless in that way and will throw out something that's going to be like, "Whoa, okay, guess we're uncomfortable again.
Alrighty, here we go." Yeah.
So, so that's it. All right, we're gonna sort of wrap here, and I want to just talk to everybody. We're gonna kind of just do this nice little bow at the end of this show here, and I did exactly what we've been talking about all show. I kind of let go and let myself get into this place of I didn't know what was going to come next. And we got to some good examples, some examples for life, some examples for acting. But the idea at the end of the day is you want to be striving to always be free, to always be in a place where you can let go completely. And the way to do that is to get away from your own ego. Get away from the things being about you. Do not make the same mistakes, or if you are making those mistakes, try your hardest to be really honest with you about your past, about where you're coming from, and make sure that there isn't something you're holding on to, so that you can experience the full joy of improvising with somebody like Darren, who's going to throw out some amazing curveballs that you get to deal with. It's such a gift. You know, sometimes we get hit with these curveballs in life, and we're thrown something that feels uncomfortable. We're thrown something that is a challenge, or this like big obstacle that's in our face, and we're going like, why is this happening to us? Like, oh no, like Darren's on my show and he gets all the laughs. or you could be like, I get the opportunity to be faced with this challenge, which is going to force me to grow. I mean, it's an opportunity. And if you focus on it that way, you're going to come out the other side of coronavirus, but any obstacle, anything that gets in your way, you're going to come around to the other side of it stronger, happier, more fulfilled, and ready to take on the next challenge. And by the way, there's always going to be another challenge. We know that. We've talked about that. I'm going to continue to repeat that. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder. So know that. But that's okay, because the struggle, the difficulty, the challenges, that's what makes life fun. That's what makes life worth living. Dig into your past. Dig into your character's past. Go in there if you're ready and find the source of pain. Find the source of the thing you're holding on to. Are you like me when you're trying to be too controlling and you're trying to have things be just perfect so that the audience feels something a certain way, and you're not willing to step back and see what a gift you have right in front of you? Are you like Brian, where you're trying to get accolades from people that don't really even know, and you're accepting them, and then you put yourself in a position where you don't feel like you actually did your very best, so you feel bad about that? Or is it something else? Like, what do you have down there that's holding you back? And if you can take my buddy Paul's advice and dig down in there and be very gracious to yourself, be honest with yourself, be accountable to you, find the thing, forgive the thing, let go of the thing, and then move forward. And you don't have to keep bringing it up. You don't have to keep talking to yourself about it. You don't have to keep playing the sad song that makes you feel sad. That's a sad song playing in your mind. You don't have to keep putting that on repeat, because it drives you down into sadness and negativity. Instead, you can go down there, forgive it, acknowledge it, forgive it, release it, and start playing a new song, a happy song, a positive song, an uplifting song, a song that is going to be inspiring to you and the people around you. All right, that's our show. Thank you for watching Mornings with Matt. This was an amazing morning. Brian, thank you for being here, dude.
Dude, thanks for having me. This was so awesome. So awesome. Thank you.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man.
All right, guys. Do not forget to like, subscribe to this channel, and have yourselves a wonderful day.
With Matt. Please like, subscribe, and follow us at Deering Acting Studio to keep up with the latest content. For more information on classes, private lessons, or professional development coaching, visit www.deeringstudio.com. Have a Deering day, everyone.